Jimbo, is the plan as of now for you to hold the OC title? Obviously, you're going to call the plays, but
no, nothing's going to change within our staff.
Okay.
I mean, Randy will do a lot of the things that James did and all that, and you could still name it. I just didn't know that. I mean, to give that title, who I give it to. I mean, but also, Onostasi's grown tremendously in his roles and the things that go on, and there's still some things we could name or do, but. What I do will not change a bit. Right. I mean, when James and Damon, they all still did a lot of the scripting, and we just sat and did it, and they did the scripting and ideas, and actually bringing tons of ideas in here right now from what they bring from their experience. But nothing has changed in any way, shape, or form than the previous group.
Other than the fact that there's just not a title.
Just not a title, but still the responsibility of doing everything. Randy does and Lawrence does, and they all have their different segments. But we always had, all right, you script this, you're responsible for this responsibility on game plan. Bring it. There's not one thing changed.
You talked last year about the eventuality of having to give up play calling. Does the departure of James kind of throw that time?
Well, I mean, and you got a new quarterback, and you got a great young guy, and whoever's breaking in, you want to have confidence. But I keep going back, and I say this: we're still in 10th in scoring in the country at 39 points a game. We still were 3rd in yards per play in the country. So, how much better are you going to do than 7 yards a play and 39 points a game? Now, and the key is being consistent in every game. We had the NC State game; we didn't score as many, and some other games. But sometimes points don't win. When you meet and you as a staff. I think we as a society, we try to make it offense, defense, but we don't have that discussion. What do we have to do to win the game? Do we have to run the ball? Do we need to slow it down? Do we need to score more points this week? Do we need to be more wide open? Can we control things and then we don't need to do it? See, we play offense and defense based off each other. I learned that a long time ago. And that was one of the first guys I was ever around that really did it consistently was Nick. And then how we approached each game, how open we were offensively, how we played, how much we blitzed on defense, how many chances we took. And we combined that by how we thought we could win the game best. So I don't always get caught up in that. But at the same time, we average 7 yards a play and 39 points a game in the end of it, and we're very productive. So, I mean, there's a different philosophy. If we lead the country in offense, that's what we have to do to win, and that's what we do. I've been in years in the SEC. Rohan threw for 4,000 yards. UConn's bowl game, he threw for 4,000. I mean, we were wide open. In other years, LSU, we didn't, and I've been that way here. Whatever I think the dynamic of our team and how we win games, I think is the key that we got to remember. And we get so caught up offense, defense. It's how they work collectively to win.
Coach, who will be in the box and who will be on the field on game day?
We'll sort some of those things out and in the next week or two. I've got an idea how we want to do it, but we're going to have those discussions in the next 2 weeks. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, your punt returns obviously were not a strength for you guys last year.
Exactly.
How much of a point of emphasis would that be, and who are you going to look at?
Well, I mean, I think Kenny Shaw really did a nice job at the end of the year. I see. They say Tyler Hunt, those guys, him and Rashad have all been out there catching balls. And I think you got some of those young guys that will be very dynamic in the right situation. And we want to really look at, Bobo, Kermit, all those types of guys, early and see where they go. But because I think one thing, we kicked well last year. We had an extensive amount of penalties on special teams last year, which was very uncharacteristic. And our return game was not where. Now, even though we had those situations, we had balls on the ground. We weren't as good in special teams a year ago as we had. Not even close to where we were 2 years ago. And I think that's an area in which we have to have drastic improvement in those situations more than we had last year. But we have the ability. But we'll have those 3 guys, and we'll add Bobo, Jesus, and all those guys in with what we got and take a look at them very early.
So a little bit more emphasis early in practice than maybe normal.
No doubt on getting those guys and getting that established for what we do. And hopefully we can then continue to kick as well as we kick.
Have you all made any changes in linebacker? Just looking at the depth chart in the media guide, I don't know if it's right or not, but Christian Jones is on the inside.
No, he played off the ball. He played the wheel in that situation. Him and Tellman are interchangeable, Mike and Will, and actually all 3 of them. But no, I mean, we train them all 3 because you're in nickel so much. All right, say if you're the Sam, then you put the nickel guy in, he goes off, then you don't want to take Christian out of the game, he drops back and plays Will or Mike or how by what we do. So we cross-train those guys. I mean, it's like when you're in split backs. For instance, all those runs, Lonnie was usually the lead blocker, was a great blocker. But all those runs he had in the Orange Bowl, EJ checked it. We had dual side runs and split backs. So we led him and led the tailback on the other side. So, I mean, you got to be able to interchange when you're checking and doing things. And a linebacker play different, all 3 positions. And at tailback and fullback, you got to be able to, especially in split back situations, you got to be able to adapt the other guy's role. So there's a lot of cross training.
So it is possible we'll see a lot of Christian at Mike this year?
Oh, yeah, you could. Different situations. Yeah, he has in the past some, believe it or not.
Yeah. Al Golden sitting here an hour ago, we talked about one of the casualties of UM making the decision not to play last year, not to go to the postseason, aside from their internal stuff, was it took away a game that this league has probably been looking for 10 years. You in Miami, Florida State in Miami in the championship game, kind of a showcase game that they never got. Do you think it's important for both of you at one time for this league and the perception of the league to be good?
I do. I think it helps because I think you bring national brand names and you bring history. I think it is. I think it makes the league much better when we're both good. That's for sure. You know what I'm saying? I don't think there's any doubt.
How much do you think it's hurt the perception of the league overall with these early games, ACC teams playing SEC teams, the non-conference, and the last few years haven't been winning a lot of those games. How much do you think that hurts the national perception?
Well, I think it does. You got to win those games. But like I say, we're 3-1. Everybody says that we're 2-1 at Florida and 1-0 at South Carolina. And we've only played Florida, but we're 3-1 at Florida State. South Carolina had won the East and played for the championship, and we beat them in the bowl game. We'd beaten Florida 2 out of 3 times. From that standpoint, we have. I don't think we recognize when we do win, but I still think it's very important to win those games. You need to win them. They're out there. You either win them or you don't. And you want people to. If you want people to think differently of you, you have to do something you haven't done, and that's why we have to be consistently go out and win those games.
Is that used against you in recruiting a little bit when you're going against an SEC?
Oh, we're right in the heart of SEC. I hear it all the time. Well, we got better players. Well, we had 11 drafted. We have more than any of y'all, so that's not true. We're developing the same. And you go back to win. Who's on TV? We've been on TV more than anybody in the country since 1995. We're the most televised team in America, so we're on TV. So but we do fight those battles. You know what I'm saying? And it's if I was the SEC, I'd be saying the same thing. But like I tell you, everything goes in trends. In the 80s, I was in the SEC for a long time. I know it's a tremendous league, but in the 80s, 90s, and all that time, SEC couldn't get in. It was Florida State, Miami. Then it went to Texas, Oklahoma. Then it went to USC. Now it's to the SEC. But there's too many good coaches, too many good players out there. Somebody will break it, but they're doing it. But I give them credit; they've done a tremendous job.
One of the reasons that some of those schools in the SEC that you're competing against regionally have had so much success is financially they're doing quite well. You guys are obviously in this process of looking at an athletics director, and I know the financial end of that has been something we've discussed a lot. From your end, how significant is it to be able to maintain, at least kind of keep up with what those SEC programs?
You have to invest. You have to spend money to make money. That's been proven. You have to spend money to make money, and I think the investment they make and what they do, it's paid off. It's proven the proof's in the pudding, as they say. And you have to spend money to make money, and not just in coaches' salaries or things like that, but all phases of your program. I think it's very critical. And fundraising, booster contributions is the key to all that.
Is FSU dedicated to that in your opinion?
Oh, I think we definitely are. And I think we want to do that. I think it's. If you don't, you're going to get behind, and that's the greatest window in what your university's seen. I've said that ever since I've been there. That's what people see consistently out there.
Jimbo, how does Coach Bowden coming back this year? What does that mean to you?
I think it's great. I think it's great for him. I think it's great for Florida State. It's definitely great for me because I have a great relationship with him. I've always had a great relationship. But I think it's also good. It's good for college football. You're the winningest coach in college football history. You're coming back to the university, and I think fans can show him the true appreciation for what he did and what he accomplished over such a long period of time and what he meant to Florida State and what he's meant to college football. And it's very exciting for me. I'm glad for it. I can't wait to let him get his due.
Did it bother you that maybe there was a strain, so to speak?
No, because people don't realize it. When I used to stay at his house back in the 80s, and I was working all the Bowden academies, and I used to go to bowl games and stay with them in the bowl games, and they would take me. I've heard him say it 15 times, probably legitimate. Whenever I retire, I'm going to move out of town, I'm going to get away. Because whoever my head coach is, I want him to have his own room to do his own thing. I don't want him to be looking over his shoulder and say, well, Bobby didn't do that. Bobby would have done this. Bobby would have. He told me that back in the 80s and 90s.
That's a good impression.
Huh? I told you, I've been around him. I've been around him 1,000 times now. People don't realize that. Like I say, he had a great fundraiser with us at Kids First. Me, him, and Coach Saban raised a lot of money in Birmingham for our foundation. Together. So, but I think, that whole demeanor and the rift, I think that he stayed away more because of respect for me than he did the other. I really do. Now, there may have been, and that's between them. It wasn't between us.
Jimbo, back on the financial thing, John Swafford has brought up.
Coach Swafford, good turn.
Has brought up revenue sharing through the bowls to give the teams that get to bowl games a certain percentage of that. Something they're looking into. What's your feeling on that?
I think that's great. I mean, and I think it definitely helps us because I think if we keep winning and establishing ourselves, then I think it's a great thing, and I think it's more incentive to because the emphasis because there are so many sports. When a school emphasizes certain sports, I think they ought to be rewarded for those sports. I mean, I think that's significant. I really do. Because I think because different teams, different schools emphasize different things. I'm for it.
In college football brings in most of the money.
Exactly right. And football does. I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, it raises over 80% of the money in the ACC. Even over, basketball's around 20, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't that right?
Yeah,
college. I mean, and I'm a college basketball fan. I'm a college baseball fan. I love it all. And it's a fact. When football does well at your school, usually all sports do well because the revenue goes up.
Do you think it's fair for a team that declines a bowl game or isn't eligible for one by the NCAA still get the bowl share?
I'm not going to go down that. That's a slippery. I'd have to think that out, and I don't have enough time to go through that procedure right now. I'm not going. I pass the question. I don't like the question. I defer.
Do you think the NCAA needs like a football-specific subcommittee? I guess you could say something that handles football-specific issues because of how big.
I mean, it's grown into a heck of an animal now. You know what I mean? Football's grown into a heck of an animal, and it's the marquee sport. And it's America's passion right now. And I mean, to me, yeah. You know what's funny? When you ever look at companies who are very successful. And you really break down when they start being unsuccessful and losing money. You know what happens to them when you off the study? You know what happens probably 95% of the time? They got away from the main reason they were that company and what made them money. They start diversifying all over the place. And then they're not a successful company. You have to remember, as they say, where your bread's buttered. And I think the more you can emphasize that and build that part of it as you grow the other parts of it, I think you'll have a more consistent situation.
Are we getting to that point with the NCAA?
That's a good question. I don't know that answer. I don't have enough information to know that answer. But it'll be interesting.
So what are the pros and cons of asking a player to change positions? Is that a difficult dynamic?
No, it depends.